All right, let's see if I still know how to do this. It's been a while, right? First of all, I want to apologize. I know I vanished, I disappeared. It's been, I'd say, close to a year. And I want to be honest with you. I was a little bit nervous before recording this class, before recording this topic, because it's been such a long time and I don't know how to do this anymore. So bear with me. I don't know if this is going to be good, but I can promise you I'm going to give you my best as I always do. So, welcome to season 3 of our Aviation English podcast. This is a podcast I normally do. I want to get back to it. I will get back to it. I'm back. So, this is a podcast I normally do in order to help you with the topics that you can see or you can find in your Icao test. And basically, what I do here is I try to get some specific topics, some topics we have in aviation, and I try to make it easy for you, not for you to understand, because I come from a position where I assume you are already a professional pilot, so you know everything I'm going to say. But I try to help you here on putting everything you already know into words. Because as pilots, we are trained to do stuff. We are not trained to talk about it. So sometimes it's very hard for us to tell the examiner what is RVSM or what is the importance of V2 because we are operational human beings and we don't know how to talk about it. So this class is not to teach you aviation, as I said. There are more competent people to do that for you. You have your company, you have your instructors, you have an entire infrastructure that can help you with that. This is not my goal here. If you can improve your airmanship, if you can understand some new concepts with me, I'll take it. I would be very happy if I knew I could contribute with that. But my goal is to help you with English. I understand that some of you struggle with speaking, with understanding, with putting your thoughts into words. And my goal here is to help you with that. As I believe most of you know, my name is Kyle Chitero. I'm an FAA pilot. I am also an aviation English instructor, and my goal is to help you pass your ICAO test. And se você é brasileiro, se você está ouvindo esse podcast, fala comigo se você precisa de qualquer ajuda no seu Icao. Fala comigo que eu tenho certeza que a gente tem um programa para você, tá bom? Então a gente vai desde o mais básico até o mais avançado e a gente coloca tudo aquilo que você precisa, tá bom? So, why did I send you this message in Portuguese? Because I mostly work with pilots from Brazil and Portugal. But if you are from anywhere else in the world, talk to me. I might have something for you too. And I don't want to give many spoilers, but there might be an international course coming up. But I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. I just said it. So, guys, without further ado, I already made my disclaimers. Take this as an aviation English class. I'm not going to talk about your company's specific SOP or how you are supposed to fly your aircraft. As a pilot, I need to be respectful and I need to understand that I don't know everything, and none of us do. And if you reach a point where you believe you know everything, that's dangerous. And I never want to touch that. I never want to be that guy. So just take this as another colleague just talking to you and helping you with whatever he can. All right. So, guys, the topic of the day is cruise. So, today we're going to talk about cruise, which is an extremely important phase of the flight, basically the longest phase of the flight. And normally, when I ask pilots, when I ask my students what they do during cruise, or what is the importance of cruise, or what is the cruise phase, obviously they know what it is, but they can't explain. So today I decided to put here to share with you actually the definition of cruise, the criterias, what we do during cruise, the possible threats we can have, how to handle emergencies. We're also going to talk a little bit about the autopilot, maybe RVSM airspace. Let's just see how it folds out. All right. So, guys, talking about cruise, we need to start from the beginning. We need to start from scratch, as I always tell everyone. So we need to understand that cruise is the phase of the flight that starts when the aircraft levels off after a climb until it begins to descend for landing. Do we start cruising at our final flight level? Not necessarily. we have something in aviation that we call step climb, right? Which is basically when we level off at a certain altitude to burn a little bit of fuel and become more efficient to climb. We do that especially on busy terminals when we have trouble directly reaching our intended flight level. So, basically speaking, cruise is the phase of the flight that starts when the aircraft levels off after a climb. It begins until we begin to descend for landing. All right. So it basically goes from top of climb to top of descent. We're going to talk about this later. All right. And what are some characteristics of the cruise phase? So basically speaking, during the cruise phase can happen from anywhere around 3,000 feet until flight level 500, which stands for 50,000 feet, as you already know. And this will vary on your operation, your aircraft, your mission, the purpose of your flight, because we can have cruising phases at, I don't know, maybe 2,000 feet if you respect your country's regulations, or 1,000 feet. I don't know where you're flying. Uh, and basically, this is the phase of the flight where we reach a destination or we accomplish our mission. Most in some flights, we don't even reach a destination, it's a local flight. So let's imagine you are going to advertise something at the beach. So you take off from an aircraft, from an airport, you get your banner, you tow your banner, you go to the beach, you do that at maybe around 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet of height, and you go back. You cruised at a very low altitude, a very low height, and you went back to the airport. So it's a local flight, and you still had your cruise phase. And I put here flight level 500, very rare, but as we like to say in aviation, if you can reach it, you can keep it, right? So if you can reach flight level 500, I don't see why the controller will not give you that. So as a captain, you will need to decide what will be your cruising level, respecting, of course, your heading, your airways, and everything. I'm not here to talk about regulations today. A typical commercial jet will cruise anywhere between flight level 310 to flight level 390, 430, something like that. So that's our sweet spot. That's where twin engine aircraft or even commercial jets normally cruise at. Okay, sometimes the corporate airplanes, these big Gulfstreams and Globals, they go a little bit higher than that. The ATRs and regional airplanes, they go a little bit lower than that. But we can say that commercial flights normally happen between flight level 300 and flight level 400. Let's keep that in mind. Another point is that the cruising is supposed to be, not always, but the cruising is the longest phase of the flight, and it's the most fuel efficient phase of the flight. Basically, depending on what you're flying, you just put your maximum continuous thrust and you let the airplane do its thing. It's basically our monitoring phase, especially if you have an autopilot. So it's not a phase that requires so much of us. It requires a lot of attention, a lot of situational awareness, and some decision making to alternate your routes to make your flight more efficient. However, it doesn't have the biggest workload. I'd say the biggest workload is reserved for our takeoff, initial climb, and our approach landing procedure. Basically, in this phase, we need to monitor everything. We need to see where everything is. We need to see if everything's going okay, and we need to manage the flight. So, the first question, if I can say, I would have for you is what do pilots do during cruise? Well, there are some things we do during cruise. So first, I'm gonna list them, and then I'm gonna help you how to structure. I'm gonna help you. Give you a way to structure this answer. All right. I'm rusty, by the way. I feel I'm stuck. I'm not so natural. A bit nervous. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm gonna let it fly. I want you to understand that sometimes you struggle to speak. Sometimes you struggle to answer something, and this is normal because speaking is a skill. And let's take me as an example here. I'm going to put myself in a vulnerable spot here. So, what do I mean by this? Speaking is a skill, teaching is a skill. Uh, Whenever the engines are warm, whenever I'm teaching and I'm recording classes every day, I feel I'm natural. I'm here. I don't even have a plan. I turn on the camera and I'm ready to go. now it's been a year. I'm talking to myself, recording this for you. Hopefully, it helps. And I feel stuck. I feel stiff. I feel uncomfortable. And honestly, there's a part of me that wants to stop the recording and just say, ah, they can listen to the other episodes, but I won't. And I'm gonna leave this in the recording editor. Leave this because I want them to see it. Um, let's push through, right? That's what I tell my students. Only kids do what they want. Adults do what they need to do, especially pilots. I want you to do what you need to do. So that being said, I just opened my heart for you in a way. Let's go back. What do pilots normally do during cruise? So let me list out our obligations. You can add more stuff if it fits you. So basically, we need to control the aircraft. We also maintain communication and we manage the autopilot. I can also say that we oversee the engine parameters and we follow the route. We can also monitor the weather, making the necessary deviations, and we analyze our fuel flow to see if everything's okay, if we are reaching our estimates, and we still have our reserve fuel, if there's no inefficiency in our flight. All right, and and this is what I want you to pay attention at. Look at my verbs. I don't repeat the verbs. Normally, when I ask this question for someone, they just give me I check the aircraft, I check communication, I check the autopilot, I check the engines, I check the route, I check. Come on, guys. Come on. A little bit more. I don't check stuff. I control, I maintain, I manage, I oversee, I follow, I monitor, I analyze. Imagine you do your test, you're there in your test, and you give the examiner check, and you want a level 5 or a 6. And right next doors, there's a guy that is giving the examiner control, maintain, manage, oversee. You guys can't compete. He's showing. I know you know this vocabulary, but as I always say, it's not what you know, it's what you show. So I need to force this out of me. If I gave you this list and if I read this to you and you understood, it means you already have the vocabulary. Now you need to take action and implement this into your answers. All right, so let's go one more time. I control the aircraft. I maintain constant communication. I manage the autopilot. I oversee the engine parameters. I follow the route. I monitor the weather and I analyze the fuel flow. Got it? Okay, now I have the content. I know what to answer. But how do I make this into an answer? Is this the answer? It is not, because I just listed maybe 7 points. This is not a good answer. It doesn't have feeling. It doesn't have a context. It's got nothing. So how do I make this? How do I transform this into an answer? Well, basically speaking, I need to introduce my answer. Pro tip here, give your context, make this personal. So I need to introduce my answer with a context. I'm going to list my obligations because that's where the content lies on. And I'm going to finish with a smart comment. With that assertive comment, assertive closing that's going to wrap everything up beautifully. So you can see my screen, but let me also show you how it's done. So let's imagine I'm flying a 767. Let's go with the Boeing. So what are your obligations during cruise? Oh, well, today I'm flying a Boeing 767 as a captain. And during cruise, I need to control the aircraft. I also report my position. Then I check my route and I deviate from bad weather or birds. Apart from that, I oversee the engine parameters. I adjust my power, speed, and altitude, and I prepare for descent. It's a relatively easy phase of the flight, but we must maintain a high situational awareness to avoid possible problems. Level 5, level 6, maybe. You see what I did? I used the answer, but I put that into a nice format. I put that into something it's nice to hear. It has a context. I'm talking to the examiner. I'm not, or the interviewer, if you're listening to this to prepare for an interview, maybe. I'm not just listing things. When they ask me what I do during cruise, they don't want to know what they need to do during cruise. They want to see me explaining. They want to hear me speaking. All right. So check this out here. Check out how I prepared this answer. So basically, here I said, well, today I'm flying and I put my aircraft. Let's imagine now I'm a flight instructor flying a Charlie 150. Oops, I just wrote 125. The Charlie 125. He says that you can use this model for you later. So, well, today I'm flying a Charlie 152, and during cruise, I need to control my aircraft, report my position. I also check my route. I deviate from birds normally, and I oversee my engine parameters. Finally, I need to adjust my power, speed, and altitude according to the stage I'm at, and I need to prepare for descent at the appropriate time. I fly a very simple airplane, but I need to maintain a high situational awareness and prevent problems. Wait. There's a Boeing 767 captain and a flight instructor flying a Charlie 152. Do they both do the same thing during cruise? I'd say so. Airplanes are airplanes. It doesn't really matter. You can be as fancy as you want, but in the end of the day, you're controlling an aircraft, talking to a controller, and going somewhere. And if you can get this mindset, if you can put this into your head, you'll be able to talk about anything. Because first, we need to make aviation simple, and then we're going to have good answers. I cannot overcomplicate an answer. I cannot answer something in a very complex manner because this is going to sound confusing. So you see, I just basically mentioned everything you do during cruise because if you're a pilot, I know you do this during cruise. You can add more stuff. You can talk about the autopilot. You can talk about managing the entire crew and whatever you want. But in the core, this is what you do. So if I'm talking about whatever pilot does and I'm bringing my personal experience into that, poof, that's a sweet spot. All right. So, how do I turn content into an answer? Well, basically, I need to create a context. I start with a context and then I go for the content and I finish with a comment. I can run out of examples. I can forget something. My answer can be very poor. But if I have the right format, I have the right answer. If I rely only on the content, now I only have one thing. And as pilots, we know redundancy is the secret for safety. Aviation is the second safest means of transportation in the world. It just loses for the elevator, I'd say, because we are redundant. We have redundancies everywhere. So how do I guarantee I'm gonna have a good answer? Well, I need to have a good context and I need to have a way out of there. So if I get stuck, I go for the comment, and that's a killer. All right. So, guys, we just talked about what we normally do during cruise. And now I want to talk a little bit about our guardian here, Autopilot. Honestly, I believe the autopilot is what really changed aviation because nowadays flights are longer, they are safer, they are more efficient. And if they ask you what do you think about the autopilot, by the way, we do have a class only about automation, and I would recommend you watching it. But I'm gonna go for autopilots now. So I'd say the autopilot is a crucial part of the cruising phase since it holds the airplane at the assigned or designated altitude and controls its speed, heading, and it reduces the workload and increases flight safety. That's what it does. So the autopilot will hold the aircraft at a certain altitude, speed, and heading, and it's going to reduce our workload and increase efficiency. So if you can see the screen here, I put a plus sign and a minus sign. What do I mean by this? Normally, when I put the plus sign, I'm talking about more positive verbs, the abundance verbs, if you may, if I may. Um, so basically, the autopilot is important because it improves efficiency, it increases the passenger's comfort, and it enhances precision. It also minimizes mistakes, it reduces our workload, and it prevents fatigue. The autopilot is also mandatory in RVSM airspaces. Do you see that? What did I do here? I answered the question beautifully. I gave around 6 reasons and I finished with a comment. Your answer doesn't need to be like this. My answer is like this because I'm teaching maybe, I don't know, if I take an average, around 20, 30,000 pilots listen to this episode or watch this episode because now I'm going to start putting the videos here. I don't know if for every class, but this one will have a video because it's my way of apologizing for being away for so long. So, what is the importance of the autopilot? Well, today I am flying a commercial jet, and the autopilot is a crucial part of the cruising phase for me since it holds the airplane at the assigned altitude and controls its speed, heading, uh, and altitude, reducing the workload and increasing flight efficiency. The autopilot will, of course, improve our efficiency and increase the passenger's comfort. It also enhances flight precision and avoids mistakes because it reduces our workload, and minimizes fatigue effects. The autopilot is mandatory in RVSM airspace. Oh, but what is RVSM? Wait, I got you. I'm here. Hey, I'm back. I told you. RVSM stands for Reduced Vertical Separation Minimum, and it is basically a layer of airspace that ranges from flight level 290 to flight level 410. It basically reduces vertical separation from 2,000 to 1,000 feet, and it optimizes our route. It helps save fuel, and it enhances efficiency and increases airspace capacity. Now, for those of you who are interested in improving your English, I want you to understand that everybody makes mistakes when they speak something. When they speak for 30, 40 minutes, 1 hour, they will make mistakes. I make many mistakes and I leave them here on purpose for you to understand that perfection is not the goal, improvement is. And this is something I really want you to understand. Check it out here. When I'm talking about the autopilot, when I'm talking about RVSM, I'm talking about it. When I have this, I need to put an S in the verb. The RVSM reduces vertical separation. It ranges from flight level 290 to 410, and it optimizes our route and saves fuel. It also enhances efficiency and increases airspace capacity. Got it? So when I have the autopilot, GPS, TCAS, RVSM, the pilot, I need to remember this S in the verb, okay? Extremely important for your structure score. So guys, we just talked about the basics, I'm gonna say. We just set up the scenario. We talked about the definition of cruise, the criterias that would basically be present in the cruising phase of the flight. We talked about what we normally do during cruise. I taught you how to create an answer based on that. Then we talked about the autopilot, the RVSM, and now we're gonna talk about the threats. I think I'm getting in the zone here. Okay. No, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Feeling back at the game. Maybe 20 minutes already. Feel good. Feel good. I like this. I forgot how much I liked it. So, Captain, let's talk about threats. Threats are problems. Problems are issues, and we like to talk about issues, but we don't want to leave them. So, how do I give examples? First of all, I need to be simplistic. If I set myself up in an answer where I put one example and I basically close all the other routes, my vocabulary is poor. However, if I create a good setup, I introduce and I open my examples, now I got a good vocabulary. And how do I do that? Wait, I told you I'm here, I'm back. So, what kind of problems can pilots face during cruise? Well, um, as a captain, I need to say that during cruise we can suffer an array of problems, including an engine malfunction, a fuel leak, a depressurization, a mid-air collision, clear air turbulence. We can also have a pilot incapacitation, an airspace infringement, an autopilot failure, loss of communication, unruly passengers, unlawful interference. I'll never stop. I can just say whatever I want. If I'm talking about a problem and I set up my answer in a way where I can just list examples, what am I going to do now? I'm going to list examples. Personally, I don't really like going above 7. I think 7 is like the most I'd ever give in the test because it just gets boring. So I would say 3 to 4 would be a minimum, 6 the sweet spot, and 7 is if I want to overdo it. But I would never lose my proficiency. I would never lose my fluency trying to give more examples. And this is something I see every day. Pilots, they want to give 20 examples, but they start losing their fluency when they are at 13. So the last 7 are just poor. So if I'm on a roll, I'm going to keep going. If I see I'm hot, if I see everything's going well, I'm going to keep going. If one example is hard, I'm going to make sure I finish in the next one. That's why it's important to talk slowly. That's why it's important to be a little bit ahead of your speech. This way you can control where it goes. The same thing as your flight. Your airplane's in one place, you need to be in that place plus 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, if you may. I wouldn't say more than 3 minutes because then you're just not present. So you need to understand where you are and where you're going. And we do the same thing when we are talking. Here, when I start the classes, I have my directives, I have my material. My team makes an amazing material for me. And I basically just read. I see what I'm gonna see, what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna talk about, but I don't have everything scripted. I like to be natural. I want you to feel that I'm here studying with you, and I am. So talk to me if you have any questions. I'm here. This is the only reason I'm on the internet. I'm creating contents just to help you. So we just talked about problems. We listed many problems. None of them are extraordinary, but it's a good list. Uh, Basic, simple, and this is a question they normally ask in the test, and I hate this question because it doesn't make sense for a pilot. As pilots, we tend to be precise. We want to know what to do. We want to have a solution. We need the muscle memory, the memory items, and we need to know the checklist. And I hate when they ask open ended questions because as pilots, we are not very creative beings. We are very technical beings. So normally in the test, they like to ask something that is, how would you handle an emergency during cruise? And if you're a professional pilot, you're going to understand me here. I don't know how to answer this. How would I ever answer this? How would you handle an emergency during cruise? I don't know. What is emergency? Where am I? What am I flying? What are the solutions? Am I near an airport? Do I need to land? I don't have those answers. I just have the question. How would you handle an emergency during cruise? Well, I'd say that every emergency is different and has a different procedure. However, as pilots, we have some basic steps to follow. First, we are going to control the aircraft and identify the problem. Then, we are going to work the appropriate checklist and contact ATC to declare an emergency if necessary. And right after that, we are going to choose the best course of action, whether it is hold, alternate, land, depends a lot on the problem. So, what did I do here? The question was very generic, but my answer was also generic. So I basically gave them the basic steps. I aviate, I navigate, I communicate. So initially, I would control my aircraft because if you don't control your aircraft, the rest doesn't really matter. And right after controlling my aircraft, I would assess the situation. So I would identify the problem and work the appropriate checklist. Then I would contact ATC and declare an emergency and choose the best course of action. Maybe hold, alternate, or land depending on the scenario. That's how I talk about problems. That's how I'm generic. If they ask you what do you normally, what would you do in case of a depressurization or an engine fire, then I have the procedure. There is a class about procedures as well. I've been doing this for a while, so whatever you need, I think I got it. Uh, if you have any kind of questions here, go to the class procedures after this one. I'm sure it's gonna help you. All right. So, guys, now we talked about problems, solutions. Every time I talk about problems, I like talking about solutions as well because we gotta solve problems. That's our job, right? And now let's talk about something very specific, which is the drift down. So, this is something that surprisingly pilots don't really know what it is. Whenever I ask what is a drift down, most pilots don't know. I think that if you're not flying a big commercial or corporate aircraft, you don't really deal with that. But in summary, I need to say that a drift down is when a multi engine aircraft suffers an engine failure and can't sustain the current flight level. So the pilot performs a series of maneuvers that guarantees a safe separation and provides us the new flight level. So let's imagine we're flying, I don't know, flight level 39 or 0. We just suffered an engine failure. uh, Airplanes can fly with one engine, but they can't fly at the same altitude with the same performance. There are limitations because we just lost thrust. So basically, a drift down will guarantee I can descend safely, avoiding obstacles to my new flight level. That's a drift down. It's a slow descent in case of a problem, so we can reach an appropriate flight level. All right. And how do we wrap up this class? What do we need to do? Um, I can't think about a better way of finishing this than finishing the cruise phase. And to finish the cruise phase, I need to transition into the next one, which is the approach. And how do I transition from cruise to approach? Well, basically, I need to understand and I need to pre-calculate this. I need to know my top of descent, my TOD, TOD. I'm gonna leave this here. I'm gonna calculate my top of descent, which is basically which will basically consider the flight level I'm at and where I want to be and the distance I have. So this will help me calculate where I need to start my descent and the descent rate I need. Of course, the descent rate is not really up to us. Most airspaces have their limitations. So I need to calculate my takeoff, my top of descent, and I also need to check my speed and altitude restrictions. I can't just dive because we have our VMO, our MMO, we have the VNE, when we got everything that will provide, that will set some restrictions for us. Um, so I need to understand my speed and altitude restrictions. I will do that by coordinating with air traffic control and reading the NOTAMs. Right after that, I'm going to brief my approach. I need to know if I'm going to follow a star, if I'm going straight into approach. This depends a lot. I'm going to listen to the ATIS of the airport or the area I'm going into, because the ATIS will give me the instructions. It will give me the latest news, the latest pieces of information, if you may. I will know where I'm going, the runway that is operating, the procedures. I will, of course, be in contact with ATC here. Right after that, by listening to the 80s, I'm going to gather the weather and NOTAM data. I can also get this through data link. And I'm going to prepare my cockpit and just inform the crew and passengers that we are about to arrive. So, how do I transition from cruise to approach? Well, basically, I check my speed and altitude restrictions to calculate my top of descent. Then I brief my approach and listen to the ATIS, and I gather the weather and NOTAM data, the latest data, and I prepare the cockpit. After that, I inform the crew and passengers. And that's it for our first class of season 3. Guys, I'm sorry if it wasn't my best work. I gave my best. It's been a while I don't record something, but I came to a point where I just realized I had to do it. Okay, just turn on the camera, get your material, and go. Because I was waiting for everything to be perfect. And honestly, I'm working like crazy. I'm working a lot. We are building our AI. We are uh, um, uh, changing our platform. We are doing many things. I'm like managing the team here. And I was always postponing this. Okay, next week, next week, next week. And then I just said, okay, enough is enough. I got to do it. So I just created the material. I got everything set. I asked some students the topics they wanted to hear about. I have around 10 or 15. I intend to do all of them. And I'm back. I think that this was my warm up and hopefully you liked it. I tried to make it more dynamic. I changed it a little bit the layout. I tried to emphasize more of myself talking to you and less of the material, the content. Um, I truly hope this helps you. I'm not here to sell anything. This is not my goal. This is not paid in any way, shape, or form. However, I do have a product for you if you want. Especially if you're from Brazil, if you're from Portugal, and you need to get your Icao test, talk to me. I'm sure we have the best. We don't have competition, so we have the best programs ever. So thank you a lot for being here. God bless you. God bless your family. And I'm glad to be back. You're gonna see me more often. So guys, take care and see you next class. All right.